In honor of today's NFL draft, the Zorich Podcast will share some draft day stories from some of our guests. I hope you enjoy them. Jerome Bettis, 1993. So, kind of interesting, you wound up skipping your senior year. You have an opportunity to do something I'm sure you thought of as a kid, being drafted and playing. And I mean, what was that experience like? I mean, this is not something that happens to everybody. And you have it. I mean, this happens to you. First round. Tell us about that.
So I got to take you back. In high school, I didn't play football. I didn't play organized football until my 9th grade. So I didn't play Little League.
Really?
I was a bowler. I bowled. So yeah, I had to make a decision when I was 14 years old. When I was I said, I need to get a scholarship. And the only reason I played football was to get a college scholarship because I had an older brother, older sister. I knew if anything went like the school clothes went, I was going to be last and left out. So I said to myself, I got to get a college scholarship. And so that was my,
your motivation, yeah.
100%. So now I go out for football as a freshman. My uncle was a high school football coach on the other side of town. Okay. He saw that when I was playing in the neighborhood that I was a good player. He said, you need to try football.
Okay.
So he sent me to a friend of his. I stayed with my aunt to go to this one particular high school, and I played linebacker my freshman year.
Okay.
My sophomore year, I moved back to my neighborhood high school. I played tight end and nose guard. Okay. And I was one of the baddest nose guards because I was about 215, 220, but I was super quick.
Quick, right? Exactly.
So I played tight end nose guard my sophomore year. My junior year was the first time I played fullback and linebacker.
Wow.
And so for me, there wasn't dreams of playing in the NFL. I didn't think that I could play in the NFL actually. And so after my sophomore year, I had a really big sophomore year. And we went to the Sugar Bowl, and we played Florida. And I was the MVP of the Sugar Bowl. I had 3 touchdowns, 150 yards rushing, and all of a sudden people were saying Jerome Bettis may try to contest the eligibility deal with the NFL, saying he can leave after his sophomore year and not his junior year.
Did you even know?
I'm thinking to myself, what are they talking about? I'm not going anywhere.
You didn't even know.
I don't even have a clue about NFL, right?
Oh my God.
And so coach, I talked to God, I said, no, I don't know. I'm fine, right? So my junior year, now all of a sudden, I have this great year, and I go and meet with Coach Holtz.
Okay.
Me, my mom and dad come in, and we have this meeting with Coach Holtz. He wants to meet with us.
Okay.
And so he tells me, son, what are you thinking? I said, well, Coach, I don't know, and he says, well, here, let me tell you. He said, you have done all you can do at Notre Dame. I suggest that you go to the NFL. And so I was like, what? Wow. And Coach Holtz said that I had done everything that I could do there. And to really take care of my mom and my mother and father, the opportunity was too great for me not to leave. And so I was just like, wow. I just didn't expect that. I thought this was going to be one of those meetings. He said, you got to come back.
Right.
He did not say that at all. He told me that I should go. And so now, I'm on this voyage. I get drafted, the 10th pick, and now all these things are happening. And it was surreal because I didn't know. And then they said, we want you to play tailback. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I'm not a tailback. Coach Holtz had me play tailback for one game. We played against Air Force.
Okay.
And Rodney got hurt and somebody else. Everybody got hurt. So he said, tell you what, you're going to play tailback because I don't want any of the freshmen to carry the ball. So I played tailback for one game, and then against USC in the 4th quarter, we were winning, and Reggie Brooks, he had got sick.
Okay.
So he had rushed for over 200 yards in 3 quarters. So the 4th quarter, I played tailback. I had 80 yards rushing. So then all the NFL scouts said, this guy can play tailback. So all of a sudden, here I am playing tailback in the NFL. Don't know anything about the position. But that year, my rookie year, become the rookie of the year, had a great year, went to the Pro Bowl. So all this stuff is happening, like in an instant as I get to the NFL. So it kind of took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting any of it. And now all of a sudden, here I am, having this magical year as a rookie in the NFL.
Reggie Brooks, 1993.
I was expected to go to the Cowboys.
Really?
So they had a guy at the house. Because, so it was a guy at the house because it was, because like I said, I had a workout with the Redskins. I went to the Redskins facility for, one of the workout, and they did some other stuff. It was kind of, psychological testing and stuff.
Really? Okay.
I guess I did really well because I had no idea. Because I'm thinking they have, Ernest Biner, Ricky Irvin, and then Brian Mitchell. They're set.
Right.
So I didn't think I was like there's no way. And I had, like I said, the Cowboys brought their whole staff up and for a workout, and they worked out several of the guys because we had, that year we had 4 first-round picks. We had Rick was number 2, Jerome was 10, Tom Carter was 17, and Irv Smith was, I think, 20 or 27, somewhere around there.
Wow. And
I was expected to be the Cowboys, because they had the last pick in the first round. And that was going to be me. And I had, subsequent conversations with them. And, I'm like, and again, growing up in Oklahoma, being a Cowboy, that was like, I'm like all in.
Oh my God.
And there was a guy at the house because we were, set to, like I said, boom, after I got announced, was going to drive down, fly to, because it was like a 45-minute flight from Tulsa to Dallas. And so this guy was at the house, and so he gets a call saying, hey, we're going to trade out of the first round. So the Cowboys trade the last pick in the first round and drop down to the 45th pick. The 46th pick.
Okay.
So when I got the call, I thought it was the Cowboys because they were calling, it was like the 45th pick, and it was the Redskins. So, but I'm thinking if the Cowboys said, hey, we're going to take you with the next pick.
Right.
Literally, the Cowboys had the very next pick at 46.
Wow.
And I wound up being Don Bro, the running back coach for the Redskins, and I'm like, what?
Well, can you hold on a second? Because I'm supposed to get a call in a minute.
And the dude is like he's right there in the house. He turns beet red, man.
Oh my
It was crazy.
God, that's crazy.
I didn't know what to say. I'm like, oh, great, I think.
No way.
And guy wound up leaving, and that was it. I was a Redskin. And I would always see Jerry Jones on the sideline because, he was Oklahoma State guy.
Right.
And I came really close to going to Oklahoma State. I was definitely
twice.
Yeah, exactly. So, he would see me and, he would always, introduce himself and say, hey, and, it was just that close to.
That's crazy.
I always wondered if I had said no to the Redskins.
Right, exactly.
Could you say no?
Right.
Because, Peyton Manning did it. So
right. Well, but that was also like the first pick, but
yeah, exactly. So like I'm in the second round, so I don't know if I can have I don't know if I'm allowed to say no.
No. I'm waiting for the guys to pick next. Sorry.
So it was crazy though.
Tim Brown, 1987.
Now, what was draft day like for you? Did you go with your family? How were you on campus? How was it?
Yeah, so, at that time, they weren't doing anything, bringing people to New York. They only brought Andre Bruce because Atlanta had said that they were going to take him as a first pick, so he was the only one in New York. And so I was in my now I had, after my eligibility was up, I moved off campus. I got the dorm room, but I moved off campus. So I was in my apartment. Brandy was there. Alvin was there.
No way.
Tonya, my son's mother, was there, I believe, and maybe a couple other her friends. But it was only 6, 7, 8 people there.
Wow.
And so I didn't know. To be honest with you, I didn't know the Raiders were even on the radar because my agent was saying that, look, so after Atlanta said that they were going to take Andre Bruce, it was Detroit, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Tampa.
Okay.
In between Atlanta and the Raiders, who had the 6th pick.
Wow.
So his whole deal was, I don't want you to go to any one of those teams because they all needed a safety. And what we had discussed, because our last year we were in the wishbone offense, right? So I would literally have to go and learn how to play the receiver position again. Now I can return punts and kicks, yes, but Kansas City, Detroit, Cincinnati, Tampa, they all needed, so he was like, I'm going to work something out. So I think he told all these teams, man, that I had an uncle to die in the city, and it would be very, emotional on me. So I don't know what he did or how he did it, but some kind of way he said, "There's no way 𝐿_Davis can pass on you if you get to the 6th pick." And I was literally trying to get to the 9th pick because the Cowboys had the 9th pick.
There you go.
I wanted to, I remember talking to Gil Brandt, and Gil said to him, there's so many receivers in this draft. We can't get up to get you. We would love to have you, but we can't make a move to get a receiver when there's going to be so many receivers. Of course, they ended up taking Irvin. Sterling Sharp was in that draft also. We had, I think we had 5 wide receivers to go in that draft, and a couple guys to go early in the 2nd round. So yeah, man, that was it, man. And some kind of way I got to the Raiders. They called and said, "Do you want to be a Raider?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
Right, exactly.
Absolutely. So, and but so I that was Thursday, Friday. I think Saturday night, Sunday, I flew to LA and was in a little mini camp practice on Monday morning. And I never forget that Ron Wolf, who I ended up going into the Hall of Fame with, pulled me out of practice and said to me, "Hey, man, look, the old man didn't want you. He wanted Ricky Dixon, who went Cincinnati to pick before me.
Before you.
And he wanted defense, and he's a little upset. And he says, and on top of that, he's not good on players from Notre Dame, especially African American players, because at that time we had a couple guys in the late 70s and early 80s to come into the league and say, I'll go through training camp and get my signing bonus, but I probably can make more money on Wall Street." And they took their talents on Wall Street or whatever. So he always thought Notre Dame players were too smart. Oh. And so I was, people were like, well, you ought to be offended that, that he, was saying that he didn't like African American players from Notre Dame. I said, well, that's really something that as a Notre Dame guy, you understood, because you were looked at as being different. You looked at as being a guy who wanted an education and da. So I wasn't shocked by that. What I was shocked by was I hadn't even got through one practice. Can I get through one practice? Can I drop a ball first before you say,
right.
I'm here for the money? So that really started a pretty unusual relationship between me and 𝐿_Davis,
Oh my God.
So I think he may have said one thing to me that my rookie year.
You're kidding me.
No, I mean, and it was, I can't even remember what it was. Well, I do remember. So my rookie year, very first time I touched the ball, I returned a kick 97 yards for a touchdown. So I had a pretty good game. First 2 or 3, 4 games, returning kicks. I ended up leading the league, breaking �𝐿𝐭𝐬 records or whatever.
Wow.
But I think the 5th game, I hurt my knee in the Kansas City game.
Okay.
And I ended up turned the cartilage in my right knee. And so the next week, I barely practiced. I played in the game the next week versus New Orleans, and played okay. And after that, I just told the trainers, "Look, man, I don't want to get surgery right now, so I'm just going to play through it." Right. So every once in a while, I had what they call a bucket handle tear, and the thing flopped back and forth, and it would get caught, and so my knee would just get stuck. But it never happened while I was running. It would only happen while I was walking, or most of the time when I'm sitting down because the flexion in your knee.
Right.
And so I played a couple games like that, and I guess the trainers may have told him that it was pretty unusual what I was doing. And he came, and Al, the only thing he said to me my rookie year after game 7 or 8 was, "You're a real tough guy, huh? You're a real tough guy." And I didn't know what he meant, So I just sort of laughed it off because I had no idea what had happened.
Right.
And I found out later that H. Rob Martin, who ended up being one of my best friends in the organization, the head trainer, told him that what I was doing playing through that injury was for a receiver was pretty remarkable.
Tim Grunhard, 1990.
During the whole process, they weren't really sure what I was going to be. A lot of teams wanted me to play center, a lot to play guard. So I went to the combine. Dean and I we flew to the combine. You talk about how you flew from Chicago to Champaign. We flew down there because we said, you know what, if they're paying for it, we're just going to, take a half hour to get down there. so we flew down there, and I had a pretty decent combine and worked out for some teams, but nobody was quite sure what I was going to be. So I was predicted to be a 6th or 7th round draft choice. And I'll never forget, I flew out to Tampa Bay and worked out for them. I flew to Washington and worked out for them. And then I flew to the 49ers. Okay. And a coach by the name Bob McKittrick was the offensive line coach. And I went in and I said, "Well, we work out." "No, you don't have to work out. We're just going to, visit with you and talk to you and all that kind of stuff." So we're sitting there, we're talking, and there was a bunch of big time offensive linemen there. I can't remember their names exactly, but they were all 1st round guys. And Bob says to me, he goes, "You know what? We're going to draft you in the 1st round." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yep, we need a center. We want to bring you in here. You're our guy. We're going to draft you in the 1st round."
Wow.
And I was like, holy cow. I mean, it's a guy, literally his 5th or 6th or 7th round projection. And I flew home and I told my parents, I said, "I'm getting drafted by the 49ers. And I'm going to be in the 1st round." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's great. Blah, blah. Oh, San Francisco's such a long way away. Oh no, I love it." So draft day comes around, and my parents sold the house I grew up in, so they had this little rental house, and so we had all these people there, and I wasn't really sure what the phone number was, Chris. We had landlines then, right?
Right.
We didn't have cell phones, so they said, "Oh, we're going to call you on game day, or on draft day, to make sure you're at the right number." Because I told them, I was like, "Yeah, I'm not really sure the number." So I gave them that, and they called. They said, "Okay, hi, this is I think it was Bob Seifert. He was, I just want to make sure this is your number. Get ready. We're going to draft you with the 31st pick in the 1st round. They won the Super Bowl the year before." So I'm thinking, all right, here we go. I'm sitting there, and the draft keeps going and going, and all of a sudden, with the 31st pick, the San Francisco 49ers take Dexter Carter from Florida State. And I'm like, "Nope." And then they called me right away, like, "You know what? We didn't know he was going to be there. We think we still get you in the 2nd round. We're still going to draft you. You just got, don't worry about it." I was like, "Dude, don't worry about it. I'm good. The 2nd round's good too." So literally 45 minutes later, I get a phone call, and I thought it was one of my buddies. "Can you have to draft it?"
Right, exactly.
"Don't call here." So I answered the phone. They're like, "This is Carl Peterson from the Kansas City Chiefs. We just drafted you the 40th pick in the draft." I said, "Oh, okay." I was like, really? And like, great. I mean, I never talked to the Chiefs, never.
Wow.
Chris, I didn't even know where Kansas City was.
Wow.
I wasn't sure whether it was in Kansas or Missouri. And to be brutally honest with you, I still don't know. So you know, I literally, Sarah and she was there, and I'm like, look, get the map out. Where the hell is Kansas City?
Oh my God.
Is it by Denver? You know, is it up by
That's
Minneapolis?
hilarious.
We looked and we found it, and the next day I flew out to Kansas City and did a press conference deal, and Percy Snow was the first round.
Yeah.
Percy.
Oh yeah.
And Percy and I didn't like each other at all either. Why is it everybody always put me with roommates that didn't like me?
Right.
I'm surprised you and I were never roommates. So you know, Percy and I were together and all that kind of stuff, and the rest is history. You know, fell in love with Kansas City.
Rocket Ismail, 1991. It's amazing you choose to go to the CFL and forego like an opportunity in the NFL. Can you kind of share that with us a little bit?
Check this out. So after I made a decision to go to turn pro, I remember the thing that it was like the 5 teams that were in position to potentially have the first pick of the draft.
Right.
They started calling.
Okay.
And they didn't want to happen what happened with John Elway when he was coming out of Stanford.
Okay.
He didn't want to go to the Baltimore Colts.
Right.
So he was like, you know what? I'm just going to play baseball. And they drafted him, but he signed with, I think, the Yankees and Steinbrenner's organization. So they didn't want that to happen again. So they had a rule in the NFL where anybody who was going to be a first pick in the draft or even had the potential to be the first pick, they had to sign a contract prior to the draft or they wouldn't be drafted. And so all of the teams, I think it was the Patriots, the Cowboys, the Browns, and I forget the other 2 teams, but all of the teams start negotiating. And I'm literally in Grace Hall, bruh, going to class, and these mugs I'm getting calls, and my agent sat down and was like, all right, well, we just talked to what's name, and they all of them offered, everybody they talked to offered $1.5 million for 5 years. And the signing bonus was $400,000. And then the other 1.5 would be dispersed over the 5-year cycle. So in my mind, I was like, well, 1.5 and I'll be the first pick of the draft. I was like, but usually if a team wants you more than another team, you know, they'll offer more and whatever. But it's like if you're locked in, but it's like they didn't know who was going to have the first pick from my estimation because the season hadn't been over yet. They didn't know who somebody could have gone on a 2 or 3 game win streak or whatever. And so that was the case. So that's on the table. I think 2 days later, it was John Edwards or maybe Ralph Wiley, rest in peace to Ralph Wiley. They called the room and they were saying, hey, it was John Edwards. He's like, hey, because he was out of a law firm in San Francisco.
Okay.
And he said, hey, we just got an interesting call from Los Angeles. And on the call, there's a guy named Bruce McNall who wants to see if you'd be interested in playing football in the CFL. I was like, the CFL? And when I was little, I remember sometimes I'd be up real late at night and no football would be on.
Right.
All of a sudden, you'd get this game, and these guys are playing and they have 3 downs to score to fill the
Right. Right.
there was a whole bunch of black quarterbacks up there. I was like, yo, okay, that's where the black quarterbacks go. They go to
Right. Right.
So now the call comes in, and he said, hey, we're going to talk later today. And if I think it's something that's worthwhile, you know, I'll call you back later tonight.
Okay.
So I go to class, go to the North Niner Hall, doing it, whatever, just chilling, and get back to the room. And he says, hey, this is real. He says, we're going to hang up. And he said, you're going to get a call from his secretary and be ready to get the instructions from her because you're going to have to go out to Los Angeles tomorrow. So I'm like, what? My heart starts beating. I'm like, what is happening? What's going on? Man, I get a call from, I forget the name of his business. But anyway, I get a call from his secretary.
Right.
And she's like, hi, this is so-and-so. The car will be waiting for you at, you know, where Grace Hall was, and the Stepping Center was like behind,
Right.
and there was that 2-lane road, like 2-lane, a part of road, that
Right.
guard gate, and then you can go down and park in there, and or you can pull up behind Grace.
Right.
Well, apparently, and I was like, how are they gonna get on campus? You know, I don't have any whatever. All I know, the driver, he said the driver's gonna be there. I was like, well, what should I bring? He said, oh, don't worry, we'll go shopping for everything you need. Man, next day, get the call, go downstairs. There's a driver. You know, back in the day, they didn't have the town cars yet. There was just the stretch limousines. Get the limousine, and I realized that I don't have did I have a driver's license? I think I had a driver's license, or maybe I'd gotten one that summer. I don't know.
Okay.
But I didn't have a car, so why would I need a driver's license? But I remember driving to the airport, but then we went past the regular airport where I didn't even know South Bend had a different section. and I was like, wait, I started getting a little nervous, like, what's going on, son? And then they pull up, and he gets out, and this is the thing, and it was like, when you don't expect certain things or understand things, when a word or a message comes into your brain, it's like sometimes your brain has a hard time deciphering it. So I remember he was like, hey, your plane is waiting for you through those doors. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so I walked through the doors, and there's this little, it's not a terminal, it's just like a little bypass, and there was a desk, not a desk, kind of, there were the attendants there. And it was like a little nice little area. And then like right outside of a door in front of me was the runway.
Okay.
And bruh, I walk out, she's like, oh yeah, hey Rocket, your plane is right out there. And I'm like, why do I keep saying my plane? I was like, I get out there, and there is the plane that the Los Angeles Kings use. I think it was Bruce McDonald. It was a huge, like it was a big plane, and there was just the flight attendant, the captain, and the co-captain. And they were just sitting there waiting for me, and it had the big LA Kings logo on the tail. And I'm walking towards them, and they're smiling like, hey, welcome aboard. Something. Bruh, I get on the plane, and it's like, remember when we used to, like on the recruiting visits, they take you to like the nicest either restaurant or spot on campus. And like for us at the time, like the highest level of culinary excellence was like shrimp cocktail, steak, maybe some bacon wrapped mushrooms or something. Just like stuff you don't never normally eat.
Right.
Lobster, bruh. It was just me, and this thing was loaded down with all, man, it had I put like 5 Snickers bars in my pocket just in case they change their mind later. It was like candy everywhere, food, all the drinks, sodas and everything, whatever. I was like, wow. Captain came back. He's like, okay, we can take off the normal way or we can take off like a rocket. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I think we're going to take off like a rocket. So there was a monitor on one of the walls. He's like, okay, watch this. And he showed us where we were in South Bend. And he's like, we're flying to Los Angeles. And he said, just a monitor. So that was like high tech for back in the day, right?
Right.
Man, I'm on that bad boy. He took off, and instead of like the normal build up to the runway, he took off, and then it felt like the plane did just like this.
Oh my God.
Oh, nah. And he was like, you all right back there? I was like, oh yeah, I guess I take off, get to Los Angeles about, let me see, we're going west. So it probably took us about 3.5, 4 hours, and get to Los Angeles. The car and everything meets me at a private section of the Los Angeles, wherever in Los Angeles.
Right.
They immediately take me to Rodeo Drive. Then we went to his office in Century City.
Okay.
It was so cool because he was into like collectibles and like he knew how to create. He showed me how you create a market for collectibles or things that you want to increase their value. Like he showed me how you do that. He had produced several pretty big time movies. And then he gave me his vision. And he's like, look, I know the CFL is like not on your radar and all this stuff. He said, but because, he was in the level at the time where guys who own NFL teams, they talk to each other. Right. And so he knew that the NFL was going to be looking to expand. And I think NFL Europe, either it was already started or like the NFL is like, okay, we got to expand, we got to grow. And there was a certain time within the next 4 or 5 years, that there was going to be talk of expansion teams being added to the NFL. Okay. So his idea was, he's like, look, man, Toronto is an amazing market. Like that's outside of Chicago, Toronto's my favorite North American city.
Okay.
And he said, we want to position it where when the NFL comes and they want to have a franchise expanded, that Toronto will be one of the teams or one of the cities that they consider.
Right.
He said, look, he said, now watch this. Now, mind you, I told you all of the conversations that we had with the NFL teams. Everybody offered 5 years, $1.5 million, 400 signing bonus. That was it. Bruh, I'm sitting there. He's like, so we'll give you a 4-year, $4 million a year base salary. And so in my mind, I was like, huh? Wait, is that even possible? Like, who makes $4 million in a year? Like, what? He didn't bat his eye. There was no, like, you could tell, like, that type of money was nothing to him. Like, well, I'm not going to say nothing to him.
Right. I understand.
The realm that he operates in. Okay, watch this. Remember we were talking about the answer, remedy, solution, that there's levels that are possible and levels that you'll never reach because you don't think they're possible. So the truth of your understanding is this is impossible. So you'll never be able to even grab the whole truth, which is it's actually possible. Bruh, I'm sitting there and I don't know if some slob came out of my mouth. I was like, what? And I'm looking at him and he's like, and what we'll do, we'll give you 10% ownership on top of your base salary and you'll get whatever. And I don't know if it was like 150,000 Canadian. Okay. I don't know what the base salary was or the max salary was for the team.
Right.
But he was just like, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, did he say $4 million in a year? What? How is that? What? And he was like, and what we'll do is you'll sign a CFL contract but then you'll have a personal services contract. And he was explaining the whole thing. And I think something similar, was Donald Trump did with Herschel Walker.
Okay.
Back then with the New Jersey Generals.
Okay.
Like it was some kind of big deal. All right, so we're going to fly up to Canada tomorrow, and we're going to go. We're going to show you we're going to show you Toronto. We're going to get some of the stars of the team. The team already had a lot of key pieces, so it was like they were just showing me around the town and just like man, you can do this, and I was like, man, this is. So we flew up, did that. Then they flew me back to school.
What, you were like class like on Monday? I mean, like what?
Yeah, for real. No, it was a weekend. It was like Friday morning leave, Friday night, get there Saturday morning game, Sunday fly, Monday or Tuesday, something like that, fly back to South Bend. And I'm in a doggone I was in a marketing class or something. Somebody
like, wait a minute, 2 hours ago.
Bro, it was crazy. I walked into one of my classes. It was a business marketing. But next thing you know, we put all the stuff together, signed with them, then went to the Anaheim Convention Center. There was a big convention, like a big sports collectibles kind of convention. Okay. We did like a little press conference there, signed some cards, and I'm oblivious to whatever's happening.
Right.
The next day is the NFL draft, I think, and we announced that I'm going to Canada the day before the draft. Breaking news everywhere. Wow. I remember, and this is like when ESPN was like 4 guys with a good idea.
Right.
On the camera, you know what I'm saying? They were like in the newsroom in their garage. And it was just like, that was a big deal. Then we fly, I don't know if it was that week or maybe it was the day of the draft or the week of the draft.
Right.
We fly to Canada. I don't have a passport or a driver's license, bruh. So we get to customs. Whoa. And I'm like, hey, I don't have anything to get in. I don't know how I got in the first time, now that I think about it. But we get to customs, and in the like they're in their little pen, and we walk up, and they're like our passport or something. And I look around, I was like, so everybody's giving their passport or whatever, or their ID. And they asked me, I was like, I don't have one, but I was like, hey, see that paper right there? So their paper, the son,
that's me,
was right behind him. My picture was plastered right on the front. I was like, that's me right there. So he turned around, I was like, oh, what? And he held it. I was like, oh, hey, welcome to Canada. I was like, all right, let's do it.
Wow.
Get in, do the press conference, get back to after the press conference. I don't know if classes had ended or not. So I may have gone back to South Bend after that, then headed back to Pennsylvania. Ralph Wiley, and he was like, well, eventually, your contract here will be up and you still can go to the NFL after that. And I was like, man, so he's like, what team do you want to go to the NFL? And again, looking back, man, like as a receiver, and this the other thing, I was so bootleg as a receiver because we don't ball at, man. It was like, just get the ball in your hand. So I had no receiving ability or anything. So it was like in my mind, I just was like, well, I guess I'm fast, and I hear Al Davis likes fast guys.
Oh my God.
And I know California is really nice and warm, and it was cool when I went out to Los Angeles. Like, what about the Raiders? They had been in Los Angeles for a couple of years. They're like, I was like, what about the Raiders? And he said, you know what? That's a good thought, because I was thinking, if I would like be in this position now and have that, I'm like, man, first of all, I think of who is the coach and or the team that has the most successful receivers, has an amazing quarterback, has an amazing system. Like I would have thought about all of that. And if I would have thought about all of that back in the day, it probably would have been San Francisco.
Okay.
But it was just like I didn't have that understanding. So ended up calling out Davis on I think the first day of the draft. And then they ended up drafting me the 100th pick. I don't know if I think that's day 2.
Okay.
And all the NFL were like, wait, what? They just got Rocket? I thought he was in the CFL. Wow. So it was like a big hubbub again. And man, that's really played one more year in the CFL. The Bruce McNaugh got into some financial issues with the government.
Okay.
And I ended up going to Los Angeles in '93, and that started the NFL journey.
Kmet, 2020.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, any kid going in the draft wants to go in the first round, right? So that's the thing, you know. My agents, like, they told me, like, hey, like, it's a possibility you go in the first day. But they were on it. Like, I was like, you guys gotta be honest with me. And they're like, it's more likely you go second, but like, I think you could definitely go in first round. So like that was definitely a conversation. And obviously a lot of this plays into what other players are available. I mean, if we're really looking at tight ends, you're going to take a quarterback over a tight, because a quarterback is a more prevalent position in the NFL. So
sure.
Obviously this past draft, the receivers were stacked. We had a really good receiver class, really good quarterback class, and then obviously some really good linemen as well. So we knew kind of those guys were kind of going to fit, and it all goes with team needs as well. So I was definitely thinking possibility with first, but I was expecting second, and if first came, I would have been thrilled. So like,
right,
kind of just like, okay, like I'm thinking second round, but first round would be awesome. So yeah, no, definitely got some buzz for that. And when it didn't happen the first night, I knew there were some teams, whether it was Green Bay or Tennessee, kind of sitting there that maybe could have taken me in the first. When the night kind of ended, I was like, oh, okay, like it's all good. Like second round, it'll be fine.
I mean, it was almost like a relief, right? I mean, even though it didn't happen.
Yeah, it was like, because you're just waiting almost for, and then when the day is finally over, you're like, all right, like let me relax, get some
exactly.
sleep. So I didn't sleep at all prior to the first round. And that night, after the night of the first round, I slept great because I was like, okay, like it's gonna happen at some point tomorrow, whether it's second round or third round, it will happen tomorrow. Like I know it's
right.
So, the start of the day, like right off the bat with Cincinnati, I knew it was an option, and then it was like Cincinnati, the Patriots, and the Colts were like the three teams that I really thought were gonna probably take me there. So, I was getting some buzz like from my agent saying, hey, look, Indianapolis might trade up here and take you. Indianapolis trades up. So I'm like, oh, wow, like it's going to happen right now. Don't get the phone call. So obviously Frank's freaking out, He's telling me to calm down. I'm like, Dad, I'm fine. You need to freaking out. He doesn't know what's going on. He's like, I just can't believe no one's taking you here. I'm like,
I'm like, Dad, thanks. Really? I got it.
It'll be fine. And then my phone rings and it's pick 42 with Jacksonville on the clock. And so we're all like, wow, okay, Jacksonville. And my brother, my youngest brother to this side, was like, not Jacksonville. And, I answer the phone call. It goes black, so I don't see anything.
Right.
And then the call drops. So so I'm like, oh, maybe I'm getting a prank call or something. And then a new number pops up. It's a FaceTime. I swipe. It's pitch black. Can't see anything. I'm like, hello, no one there. And then all of a sudden I see Coach Nagy's face.
No way.
Everyone's freaking out. My youngest brother's crying. And then it was amazing. It was an unbelievable feeling, a lot of relief. And I was so happy to get that done with, just to now be on a team and get back to football and,
sure,
just playing, getting ready for the season, all that stuff. So obviously a really cool experience, but it was obviously a really cool story too, but pretty wild as well.
Todd Lyght, 1991. Draft day. Right. So I don't know how it was for you. Did
Yes.
you know you were going to go high? I mean, how was that? Where were you at? I mean,
Right.
kind of share with us.
You know
tell
what
us
was
about that
interesting?
experience.
So I was drafted in 1991, and actually I was the only player invited to the draft.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was the NFL draft hadn't really got to that point. I think they started going really big in around 95, 96.
Okay.
But at that point, I was the only player brought in. And I was sitting in the green room waiting, and the order went, Dallas had the number 1 pick. Cleveland had the number 2 pick. Atlanta Falcons had the number 3 pick. Denver had the number 4 pick. Rams had the 5th pick. And the Chargers, Arizona, I think Arizona. Somebody had the 6th pick, and I know the Chargers had the 7th pick.
Okay.
And I had talked to the general manager of the Chargers the night before the draft, and he said, if you're there at 7, we're taking you. So I knew worst case scenario, I was going to go 7.
Right. Worst case.
You know what I mean? Worst case scenario, I was going to go 7. So I was good with that. You know what I mean? That was
Of course.
the feeling. And it just, waited for my turn. And another funny thing, so during the recruiting process, with the NFL they were trying to bring players in. So I didn't go to Dallas. I knew I wasn't going to be the first pick because they never flew me down. But Cleveland, who had the 2nd pick, Bill Belichick was the head coach at the time, and Nick Saban was the defensive coordinator.
No way.
And so, they were really thinking about me, taking me at the number 2 spot because of my relationship with Coach Saban.
Right.
And then also, obviously, he was at Michigan State, and then, he knew all about me and was like, you know what, maybe we need it because they were going to go defensive back. So I was one of 2 or 3 candidates that they were thinking about taking. And I remember somebody from the Cleveland Browns organization called me and were like, listen, we're going to send a plane for you to bring you out for a weekend. So we can have you here to the facility and, meet you and interview you and, we can show you around Cleveland. I said, don't do that. They were like, why? I'm like, because I'm not playing professional football in Cleveland.
No way.
And I was going to Cleveland. Well, listen, think about it.
Wow.
I went to high school in Michigan. I went to college in Indiana. There was no way I was going to play professional football in Ohio, dude.
That's crazy. Oh my God. So you told him, no, I'm good.
Well, listen, what's the difference? You go to Cleveland at 2 or you go to the Chargers at 7?
Right. No, absolutely. Well, it's a couple $1 million, but still.
If it's the first pick, you got to do the Baker Mayfield. You got to go to Cleveland. But it was the 2nd pick. It wasn't the same. You know what I mean?
Right.
In my mind, 2 through 10 was the same thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I fell to the Rams, and it worked out really, really well. Phenomenal organization. Being out here with LA was great. Love it out here. Just moved back, happier as ever. And we went to St. Louis, great sports town.
Well, all right. So I was going to ask you about that. So you drafted from LA. This was great. I know Pat's there.
Yes.
Right? Pat's you guys hanging out.
Yeah, Pat's
you guys are roommates, right?
I was living with Pat.
Oh my Lord.
Pat had this beautiful house.
No way.
Yeah, out in Laguna Niguel, like in this really nice neighborhood, Ocean Ranch. There was like waterfall, gated community.
Wow.
And I remember going to his house, and he was like, well, where do you want to live? I'm like, dude, I'm going to live here. You out of your mind?
That's
I'm gonna
awesome.
that room right there.
Right.
Yeah. That room right there that has no furniture in it, that's my room.
Oh my God.
And so I lived with Pat my rookie season. It was phenomenal, man. We had a blast. Didn't win a lot of games.
Right.
We had a blast and really, really got a chance to experience some things on the West
Rick
Coast.
Mirer, 1993.
Drafted number 2 overall to the Seahawks. That had to be just an amazing experience for you.
It was, it was cool. It was kind of the beginning of the change to like television of the draft and stuff. I didn't go to New York because I didn't want to go to New York. Drew Bledsoe went, not because he knew he was going to be first, but I don't know, like a couple guys went and he was one of them. I felt more comfortable being at home and just being with my family and friends. So, the funny thing was that year, those 2 teams kind of showed their cards. Like they're like, we're both picking quarterbacks. So it's whichever order it's going to be. So that was kind of nice to know. The problem is you're going to go to a bad team.
Right. That's the way it works out, right?
best thing is to be like the 20th pick on a team. But I was so excited to just have another shot to go somewhere, wherever it was, and compete and play and all that. And all that happened. But the draft thing's kind of a blur because, it wasn't the production it is now.
Sure.
That's too much for me, but I get why it is the way it is. But we had an honest kind of lead up to it. You do all the combine stuff. They know everything about you. Where are you going to fall in the whole line of things, and then go to work. And
right.
I was ready for that. And fortunately for me, I graduated at December and end of my middle of my senior year, I guess.
Right.
Quite early because of all that summer school stuff we did. And I had the spring to just kind of get ready for what was next, and get a little bit of a break, but also work out and not have to grind through the classroom stuff that was behind me. And then minicamp, it's real. You go to work, and now the lights are on you in a different city, and it's magnified in a different way.
So you and Jerome kind of shared the offensive rookie of the year MVP or co-MVPs or whatever, the offense. I mean, that had to be an amazing kind of crazy experience your first year and just having an amazing year.
Well, it's actually more than that because Reggie was the third guy. So Jerome, Reggie, and I were 1, 2, 3 in, most of the voting stuff. I don't know. I have a trophy somewhere that, and so, but the beauty was I was able to start all 16 games for me. I mean, Jerome's in the Hall of Fame because Jerome's Jerome. That was a big year for me because I could take the beating 16 times and keep coming back and start all those games. And not a lot of guys prior to that had done that.
Right.
Now, it's different. Guys are more prepared going in. But we were just kind of winging it. And I'm proud of that because that's an endurance event. And, away from home, living on your own, like a lot of things were new. But it's, that's life in the fast lane. And I was happy to, to go through that. I wish Tom Flores could have remained our head coach longer.
Right.
Could have kind of built on whatever we were working on, but the NFL's not that patient. So
yes,
you don't win enough, they move on. And whether it's for good or bad, it changes the way, it has to go. And that's fine. So yeah, I'm proud of that rookie year, starting all those games, living to tell. I mean, that's something, but Jerome obviously had more, years following that were statistically amazing and on really good teams. And I'm so happy for him and all the stuff he's done all this time too.
Frank Stams, 1989. So you went from broken leg, fullback, possibly going to lose a scholarship, to playing a new position, winning a national championship, getting a certificate, becoming All-American.
Right.
And getting drafted by the Rams. I mean, what was that like? I mean, like literally in a year and a half?
Yeah, going to the Rams and gosh, I was thinking maybe, I would have liked to have gone to Chicago like you did. I would have liked to have gone to Cleveland, but looking back on it, wow, I am so glad I went to Los Angeles and was part of that for about 4 years of my life. And then I got the best of both worlds of, coming back to Cleveland and finishing up with Cleveland, probably with one of the greatest NFL coaches of all time. So,
well, I was going to ask you that. I mean, what's it like? I mean, I know personally, but for you, I mean, what was that experience like playing for your hometown team? I mean, that had to be, that had to be insane.
Oh, it was awesome. It was just simply awesome. I remember when they traded me. Chuck Knox then was the coach of the team in his first year. I had John Robinson my first 3 years. Chuck Knox gets the team, and of course, as you know, new coaches, they're looking to bring their own players in, get rid of players. And so I was a victim on one end with him, but a recipient with the Browns because Belichick was in his second year with the Browns. They were looking to bring in their own players. So they had traded for me. And I remember my parents were out there on a home and home thing, and they took my car to go out to Las Vegas. This is before cell phones. And while they're out there, they trade me to.
Oh shit! I didn't know. Are you serious?
Right. Yeah, right. And so I had to track them down, and finally I did. I said, "Listen, I got good news and bad news." And I said, "Well, what's the good news?" I said, "The good news is they traded me to Cleveland." And I said, "Well," he said, "Well, what possibly could be the bad news?" I said, "The bad news is take my truck and keep on going." Go from Vegas to Cleveland. All right.
Oh my god.
And so, yeah, it was just crazy. I show up in Cleveland, and God, I mean, you know this. You're playing in front of your friends and family. It doesn't get any better than that. And of course, then post NFL, my wife and I are here in the same town that I grew up in, and we raised our 2 children here. Been married for over 20 years now, and she is just man, she's put up with all my issues, problems. I mean, she should have been a therapist. She missed her calling.
Pat Terrell, 1990.
Wow, Chris, it was fun. It's everything started happening so fast in the second half of college. I'm about to graduate and get a degree from Notre Dame. I'm seeing my name in magazines and showing it to my girlfriend, Beth, who's my wife at the time. And she's like, that must be a typo. I started dating you when you couldn't catch, and so it was a neat experience. It's like, wow, this really may happen. And it was a goal, don't get me wrong, but it was an exciting part, so the draft came and I went home and, I was going to go to New York, but I remember that the year I came out was the first year that they allowed college juniors or underclassmen to come out.
Right.
So I was projected anywhere from the first round to the second round, and you always got that little hope. But when they announced that, I'm like, wow, this is kind of tough. There's going to be a flood of talent. I know Emmitt Smith and Mark Carrier and a bunch of great players came out as juniors that year.
Right.
For the time.
Right.
So I didn't want to, be in New York with that sad face with the camera on me.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Look it off like this.
So I went home, to share a pretty special moment with my family. And so,
Absolutely.
And, back in the day, the draft took a long time. So, I got nervous. And I remember one moment, this is before cell phones and I don't even think we had caller ID yet, right?
Oh,
I'm not too sure.
Right.
But I just remember sitting there staring at that phone, just praying it was ringing. And I'm like, man, did Pops pay the phone bill? Is the phone working? So I remember, Chris, I went.
Dial tone. Okay, got the dial tone.
Yeah, dial tone. And then one funny story I remember was my sister Kim, who, I love her to death, but, she's like, oh, this draft stuff, what's going on? And I remember I wanted my sister in like eyesight to make sure she wasn't back in her bedroom on the phone. And so she was sitting, I had to see her, And I remember I said, Kim, I go, run next door and call the house phone and make sure the ringer's working, And she goes, oh, well, whatever, Pat. And she goes and she does it. And the phone rang and everybody jumped up and I answered. I'm like, hello? And she goes, it's me, Pat. I'm like, what are you doing on the phone? Why are you calling? Get off the phone. And I hung up on her. I still feel bad today because I told her to go over there and make that phone call.
God.
So it was a fun time. Got drafted and selected by the Los Angeles Rams.
Okay.
And Chris, you're in South Bend for 4 years and you get drafted by the LA Rams. And my first phone call was from Coach John Robinson.
Nice.
And then he hands the phone to one of our friends, Frank Stams. And Frank was just giggling and so excited. He goes, BT, come on out to LA, baby. So that was fun. And so it's pretty cool because Frank got drafted with the Rams, one of their top choices. The next year they took me. The next year they took Todd Lyght.
Right.
And then the next year they took Jerome Bettis. So it was like Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Notre Dame. It was really cool.
Tom Thayer, 1983.
Well, so I came out of college in the first year there was ever a bidding war between USFL and NFL.
Right.
And so I was walking out of the weight room at Notre Dame about a week before the draft.
Okay.
And one of the Bears scouts came up to me. His name was Jim Palmer, who was a great guy. He says, "Hey, I got some good news for you." He goes, "We had a mock draft this weekend, and we drafted you in the 4th round." And I go, 4th round? That's a bunch of crap. I said, I'm not going in the 4th round. And so 2 days later, George Allen, who was the head coach of the Chicago Blitz,
Right.
he called me up and says, "Hey, we're really interested in making you an offer, and we're going to give you a guaranteed contract for 3 years. So you're not going to get cut. It's a personal service contract. We want you to come and play for the Chicago Blitz." And I was so angry that they told me that they drafted me in the 4th round of the mock draft. I said,
Right.
"All right, I'm gone." But then he goes,
Seriously?
"Hey, can you do me a favor?" Back then, the NFL draft was not covered. It was on a Tuesday, and you just got the picks announced, and then they called you.
Okay.
So it's Tuesday. George Allen says, "Hey, do me a favor. Don't announce you signed with the USFL because we want to make a little splash to see who drafts you in the NFL."
Okay.
So I go there. Can you turn that light on? Thanks.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yes, sorry. So I go there, and George makes me a deal. I can't turn down. Don't say anything. So now it's Tuesday of the draft. I go to the USFL facility to start practicing and making announcements that I'm going to sign there. A couple minutes later, the Bears make a draft choice in the 4th round, and they announce it's me. But the press that was already at the USFL, they went up to the Bears draft facility, and they thought they were joking. And they said, he just signed with the USFL.
Wow.
And so George got exactly what he wanted to. He got a little bit of a splash,
Wow.
and it just so happened that I was drafted by the Bears. But back then, they had your rights for 4 years if they drafted you. Even though I was going to play 3 years in the USFL, I was still going to sign with the Bears at the end of that
I
time.
didn't know that. Oh, wow.
So it was the good and the bad. I was fortunate that the Bears had my rights, and I was going to the Bears. I may have lost some money because if I made an announcement early and nobody drafted me, then I would have been a free agent.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So,
Okay. But at 21, what do you know? Did you even have an agent? Was it even okay? All right. Did your agent say that it was a good idea to do?
He did. He says, "Hey, listen, I would recommend this to any client. They're offering you a guaranteed deal. You could go to the Bears and get cut, and you could be out of luck." And so the USFL made me a fair deal, and once they made it guaranteed, it was really too hard to turn down. And I as soon as I learned the playbook, I was playing. So the next week, we were playing the Washington Federals. I was 20, and the guy I was playing against was 40.
No way.
Yes, his name was 𝐿𝐴, and he was a defensive lineman. And I was going, man, I just can't believe the age difference.
That is insane.
Yes.
Wait, so when did you turn 21? When's your birthday?
August 16th.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's insane. You were 20 years old.
I was playing the second semester senior year, and then I was 20 because I remember the first time going out with my teammates, I wasn't legal to drink.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and they had a lot of fun with it, telling
everybody that. Right, exactly.
You can't drink, Cardinal.
Stephon Tuitt, 2014. You have a chance to do something that a lot of people have not had a chance to do, and that's get drafted. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened on draft day for you? Were you shocked? Were you disappointed?
Oh, I was disappointed I wasn't a first round draft pick. I definitely was. I thought I was projected to be there, but fell short. Life happens. It fell short. And that could have determined my whole career or not. But once again, that wasn't going to determine nothing for me. I didn't look at it the same way other people looked at it. It was just like, okay, boom, I'm a second round draft pick. I was upset, disappointed. I'm going to make you all pay. That's how
Bingo.
I look at it.
And now that you fast forward a couple of years, you have a chance. Well, first of all, you started a couple games in your first year with with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
And how was that? I mean, so now you've kind of made what you've been thinking about for such a long time. I mean, what was it like your first game? And maybe not even starting, but just kind of getting dressed.
It was,
and walking out on the field.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a locker room with Brett Keisel, Troy Polamalu, Ike Taylor, Ben Roethlisberger, Pouncey, Gilbert.
People that you watched.
Yeah, like
right? People that you watched on TV.
Yeah, like it's like these people that's like the best at their colleges and the best in the NFL doing that. And they went to the Super Bowl not too long ago, too. Like 4 years ago. Like, I'm in a locker room with these type of guys. They had the number one defense for like a couple years, running out of 3-4. You know, it was nuts. It was nutty. It was just like I got a chance to not put a gold helmet on. Now I'm putting on a black helmet that got a Pittsburgh Steelers logo on it. And you know what comes with that if you play on the defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's
absolutely.
Like, you know, that's like playing on a juggernaut defense for any college. It's you put that helmet on and you playing defense, you are special. And I mean, my first game, I didn't get a chance to play that many snaps. I think I was just playing like 20, 10, 15, if that, 15 to 20 snaps.
Okay.
And because I had Brett Keisel in front of me, it was Brett Keisel, 𝐷𝐸𝐻𝐻, and another nose tackle named Steve McClendon, who just won the Super Bowl last year. But doing that alone, just coming out and seeing the Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it was nuts. It was different. I mean, you know, alcohol is involved now, so you just you just understand the history of it. And being able to run out that tunnel, and you have people like Troy Polamalu looking back at you. You got Brett Keisel talking about, "You ready, boy? You know, this is it." You know, you just got. I mean, my heart probably could have went through my chest. You know,
my God,
that was probably one of the most awesome moments. And my Notre Dame experience running out, that was a really cool moment. But if you're a football fan and you know like football players and you know that was like a moment to have, and I would never forget that moment either.
Bryant Young, 1994.
Draft day.
Yeah.
Were you with your family? Do you have friends over? What was that environment like?
Yeah, so I did have family, friends over. I did get an invite, you know, to go to New York that year. And so, you know, I'm a behind the scenes type of guy. I don't want to be in front of all the
Sure.
You know what? Thank you, but I'm going to pass on this opportunity. I'd rather be at home with my family in an environment that I'm comfortable with at the time. And so that's what I did. I didn't go to New York. I stayed home with my family and friends. And it was just a great opportunity, great time to be around them. Because when you think about all that has transpired, you know, from coaches to friends to family, all the support, you know, everybody's a part of that, you know.
Exactly.
I want them to have a chance to be a part of that. And so I was home. And so when I got that call at the 7th pick, it was a dream come true for me. I grew up a Bear fan. I'm not gonna lie. I did grow up a Bear fan, but I'll tell you what, it was because of those games that the Bears played against the 49ers in the playoffs. That's when I became a really big 49er fan. And so to be able to get drafted to a team that you really love, it was definitely a dream come true for me.
I hope you enjoyed this NFL Draft edition of the Zorich Podcast. To watch more episodes of the Zorich Podcast, please go to youtube.com/ChrisZorich50 or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Go Irish!